if hopefully Daniel joins us in a little bit. There's our nice Rotary bell. I'm Steve Baginski. Thanks for joining us. I think everyone here knows me. We have Bruce DeBerry here today. Thanks for joining us, Bruce. Appreciate it. If everybody could join me for the invocation, because John Graves emailed me and said he could not get out of a meeting in time, so he wasn't going to be able to make the meeting. So I will do the invocation for us today. So please bow your head in the spirit of prayer. Lord, thank you for bringing us together on this first beautiful day of September. Please give us the strength and courage to battle through these tough times and provide our club and all the Rotary clubs around the world the knowledge and skills to battle this pandemic. And thank you for giving us the skills to eradicate polio in Africa and around the world. And for those of you enjoying lunch, please bless this food. In God's name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, if everyone could join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Debbie, if you could throw that up on the screen, please. Okay, I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty
and justice
for all. Thank you, Debbie. And right now, the guest we have is Bruce DeBerry again. Thanks, Bruce. You're looking good. I like what you did with your hair.
Oh, thank you. Actually, if you got a minute, again, just the social distancing things.
Sure.
Hadn't had it cut. Wendy hadn't been to her colorist since March. And she arranged about 2 weeks ago for her hairdresser to open exclusively for just us.
Ah,
And so while she was having her color set, I got my hair cut, and then she got washed, and so we're looking good again.
that's great. That's nice to have connections.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, good.
So-
Thank you. Anybody else have anybody hiding in the background that I don't see? Julie's got a whole soccer team. Okay. I have some interesting facts today in history. Today in history, the remains of the unsinkable Titanic are located by ocean researchers. The Titanic sank in 1912. The remains were found on this day in 1985. That's kind of interesting. Sad day in history. On September 1st, 1983, Russia shot down a South Korean's airliner, thinking it was a spy plane. Over 269 people aboard were actually killed, including U.S. Congressman Larry McDonald and many other Americans. Russia tried to kind of hide a lot of it. It wasn't until 1993 that all the truth came out with the black box and the wreckage. So that actually almost started World War III back then. So that was quite a touchy situation. Here's kind of a funny deal. The first arrest of a U.S. Vice President was on September 1st, 1807. Some of you may recognize the name. Aaron Burr is acquitted of treason against U.S. President Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson had ordered his arrest, but he was acquitted. Burr had previously served as Vice President under Jefferson. Burr was accused of trying to create an independent country in the center of North America, including southwestern U.S. and parts of Mexico. Burr claimed he was just trying to farm the land. To this day, plus he had like 60 militiamen guarding it. To this day, they really don't know what he was up to. But another fact about this Burr character, during his vice presidency in 1804, Burr killed a former Secretary of Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, in a duel. So this Burr guy was really a nice guy. Mark Spitz won the 4th and 5th of his 7 gold medals back on September 1st, 1972. Then there was the chess match of the century. Does anybody know who that included?
Oh, good, yeah.
I remember.
Fisher and Spassky?
Yes, you are right. Fisher and Spassky of Russia. And the government was not going to let it happen because they said it was against the law because of what was going on in Russia at the time. But the match did happen, and then it would say Bobby Fischer ended up winning.
Yeah, they turned that into a pretty good movie about Fisher, Bobby Fischer, searching for Bobby Fischer. It's
Right.
It's good, especially for kids that might want to see something. How do you make chess into an action film? Not quite, but it had some good moments.
It was pretty good, and it's because it had to do with Russia. So it was. I saw parts, but I didn't see the whole movie. The first clown college was established on September 1st, 1968. So I'm not sure if that clown college is still around. I got a feeling Dave Conkle would maybe, with his jokes that he comes up with, may want to check that clown college out. But it was created in, again, 1968, September 1st. It was established in Venice, Florida by Irving Feld of Ringling Brothers. So first clown college. And the first U.S. Women's Open Championship was held on September 1st, 1946. First railroad bridge across the Mississippi River was started on September 1st, 1854 from Rock Island, Illinois to Davenport, Iowa. So that was pretty interesting. And a few birthdays: Gloria Estefan on this day, 1957, Barry Gibb, Lily Tomlin in 1939, and Rocky Marciano for your boxing fans, September 1st, 1923. And a very, very sad day for you dog lovers. On September 1st, 1945, Toto died, the Wizard of Oz. So just wanted to bring that up for you dog lovers. And that's what I have on this day in history. Does anybody have anything else to add on this day in history that I may have missed? Guess not. We really have no birthdays this week. We have a few coming up next week in the rest of October or September, but no birthdays to speak of this week. So we'll save those. Well, you know what? I probably should talk about next week's birthday because we're going to be off because of the holiday. We're not going to have a September 8th Rotary meeting. So if you see Josh Hayes, his birthday is September 9th next week. So make sure you give him a happy birthday. The rest of them are later on the month. So, and actually Josh Hayes' wife Teresa, September 23rd. So if you see them both, say happy birthday. That's all I have as far as birthdays, unless I'm forgetting something that somebody else wants to bring it up.
Not birthday related, but a couple of fun things happening at the district that you guys might be interested in. September 9th is the first president-elect training. It will be done interactive like we're doing here rather than in person for a couple of hours. And then something that interests all of us, September 15th and the 23rd, the Tri-District membership workshops are going to be going on, also in Zoom meetings. The district front page has registration links to get signed up and get more information for that. But in these days of COVID, it's great to start training your successor, Steve, and also to figure out how to grow our clubs. So those are a couple of things that are coming right up.
Yep, thank you, Bruce. And I did forward that on to make sure Latif had gotten that, and he said he did. So he's on the trail, so I'm sure he'll be attending that. And yeah, I did see the Tri-District workshop. So that's one nice thing. It is a little easier to attend some of these things being online. So everybody's welcome, especially this Tri-District workshop. I think it'd be interesting for everybody, just to get ideas on what we can do to grow the club and keep things going. So. Let's see, humor of the day, Dave Conkle. Let's see if you need that clown college.
Yes, sir. Well, I had two to present to you guys, but I picked up a third one as I turned on my computer this morning to join the Zoom meeting. You know how you get those pop-ups at the bottom of your computer every once in a while? Well, I got a computer pop-up this morning from AccuWeather that tells me that the National Weather Service has put in a hazardous beach warning for Walton Hills today. I sure am glad that I didn't rush right over there for the Ohio Surfboarding Championship today.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh.
The actual jokes that we had for today, and Bill and Robin, why don't you keep your ears open to this one? There's a suggestion to change your computer password to the word incorrect so that when you forget it, the computer will tell you your password is incorrect. And a final thought for the day. If tomatoes are technically a fruit, does that make ketchup a smoothie?
Oh.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
That's it. It does.
I wouldn't want to drink it though.
Well, just take some ketchup, put it on ice. Should be good, right?
Comment to go with Dave Kunkel's wife. And do you know why Heinz, H.J. Heinz, invented the ketchup?
Huh?
Oh,
My
why?
wife's from Pittsburgh.
Because at the time there was no refrigeration and people were eating rancid meat. So they put the ketchup on it that killed the smell and the rancidness of the meat. And Heinz ketchup has been ever since.
Well, I relish the thought of
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
No, you
Learn
don't.
something new every day.
I do like my ketchup.
Yes, yes.
You can get it with jalapeno.
Ugh,
And
it's a
and
little
as
tough on
Hope
my gut.
Conkle says, only Heinz ketchup.
All right, thank you very much. Change for charity. Any happy dollars that anybody wants to talk about? I'll throw a sad. So far, I'm sad that our speaker hasn't showed up yet.
Yeah. I mean, he emailed me just this morning. He
Okay.
was excited to talk to us. I don't know.
Well, you know what? Stuff happens, and we're gonna get through it. We'll figure something out. Anybody else have some happy dollars? Well, I'm happy to see September show up on bright sunny day. I'll throw that out there. I'm happy to see my daughter Amanda show up down in the bottom square down there. Thanks for showing up. And my father, I'll throw another happy dollar in. He finally showed up a little late. Thanks, Father. Robin.
Well, I'm happy that I have an all-student crew to stream some of Nordonia sports this year for the first time.
And I'll second that.
I'm just trying to think hard. Maybe I missed it. Did we celebrate Kathy Miller's birthday? It was not too long ago.
I think that was last month, right, Kathy?
It was March 23rd.
Oh,
I think that's when we stopped.
well, your
celebrating.
sister is giving me bad information.
But I will throw in a happy dollar. Well, two happy dollars. One, we were able to have our vacation Bible school, not last week, but the week before. And with only 13 families, we collected, gosh, I want to say around $300 and about 100 toiletries to be divided up between Nights Caring for Nights and the Emergency Assistance Center. And also a thank you to our Nordonia or our Night Lance for attending the first and last day. That was a big hit with the kids. So two happy dollars.
I will pass on the information to him.
Or her.
I just got an email from
Lance is a boy.
Oh,
He
okay.
said, I am on the Zoom link that you provided. I just wanted to make sure I let you know that I have my presentation ready to go.
Huh.
Well,
He's on.
obviously didn't get on the right. I mean, the right,
Isn't that in the waiting room?
No, I checked that.
I didn't turn it on.
Amanda, is that Graceland behind you? Yeah, we should have a contest. Guess the background.
Well, just send him that link again. Maybe he can jump on. And in the meantime, we can just kind of pop around and see what everyone's been doing this summer and how they've been dealing with the COVID and how it's been affecting their lives. You know, personally, we've been kind of, for me, we've been housing up at our lake place whenever possible, or I'm actually building a new garage right now, so I've been spending a lot of time out there. Work related, our biggest problem is trying to get people in, you know, trying to hire new people to get things happening. We had a few slow months, you know, when this COVID thing first started, but now we're really cranking in the orders. It's like a whole new year. Problem is we can't get them out quick enough. So
maybe Rotarians like an extra job, son.
yeah, if you guys need some overtime, like between 3:30 and 7 or 3:30 and 8 o'clock, we'd be happy to hire you. But you know, that's what we've been going through. The COVID's, you know, been tough. My daughter Nicole, she's been working from home ever since this started, doing everything on Zoom, just like we've been doing. But we battle our way through it. Sometimes it makes it easier, like Bruce was just talking about. Sometimes it makes it easier to be able to attend some of these seminars and stuff, doing it online. You don't have to travel to it. However, the social aspect is missed. You know, I miss having the meetings at the town hall. You know, hopefully that's going to change in the near future, but I know it's going to be going through the first of the year, that's for sure. But we'll get through it all. Does anybody else want to let me know, or let us all know what they've been doing over the summer and how they've been dealing with COVID?
Tell about the progress with your management workers working on the line.
Oh yeah, well that's what we had to do. We had to put mandatory overtime out there in our plant, and of course you get moans and groans about that all the time. So how we kind of solved that is we told all the office personnel and management, you're also going to join in and do 3 hours of, just 4 hours of overtime a week, and that's including me and my sister and the rest of the family members. So we're all in the plant, and it's interesting how it's created bonding. You know, everyone's starting to get, you know, usually your office people are separated from the plant people. They don't get to know them. Well, now everyone's getting to know each other better and getting to know everyone's personalities, and it seems to be a hit.
There we are.
So it seems to be working out well. So now that everybody got to hear about me, hi Dan.
Hi, Dan.
We found Dan. Hi Dan.
Hello, Dan.
Thank you for joining us.
I guess something happened with that link. I don't know.
I hope I didn't keep you waiting too long.
No, they just, well, unfortunately, they've had to hear about me and my life.
That's funny.
So they're really glad that you showed up because they really got tired of me talking about myself.
That's
Not true.
I enjoyed seeing another March baby out here, so it's always nice to find people with a good birth date.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, Bruce. That's fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us, Dan. Sorry you had trouble with the link, but you know, it's hard to stay away from us. I knew Debbie would track you down.
yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for that, Debbie.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So I've got a little presentation. I was gonna hopefully share my screen and then go through a little PowerPoint if that's cool, and then we could chat and have a conversation. I don't know how that sounds.
Sounds fantastic. So I will go ahead and introduce you then, Dan, and give you your little bio background here, and then you can take over.
Cool. Sounds good.
All righty. So Daniel Brown is one of the founders of Rust Belt Riders, a Cleveland-based social enterprise that provides Northeast Ohio businesses, organizations, and individuals with an alternative to landfills for their food waste. Their mission is to feed people, not landfills. Prior to starting Rust Belt Riders in 2014, Daniel held roles in community and economic development. Daniel has served as the Cleveland-Cuyahoga Food Policy Coalition, Cuyahoga County's Next Generation Council, and is a National Fellow for Environmental Leadership Program, and was recently named a 2019 Echoing Green Climate Fellow. Please join me in welcoming Daniel Brown. Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks for having me. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to try and share this with you, and then we'll get going.
Great.
All right, can you see that?
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. Well, thanks again so much for having me. I'm going to try and give you a little bit of a background on what it is we do and why it is we do it. And I think the why we do it is very important. So we really enter into this work from the place of recognizing that a lot needs to be done around climate change. It is a reality that we are facing. And our current trajectory, given greenhouse gas emissions, will lead us with 95% likelihood to about a 2-degree rise in Celsius over the next century. And essentially what that will is a world very unlike the one that we've been used to living in. We will have as much as close to 200 million climate refugees who will not be able to live in their current homes. We will have to be growing and producing roughly 50% more food to feed a growing population. The likelihood and frequency of severe weather and storms will continue to increase. And it's a really, really scary and dire situation. And so we need to do everything we can to minimize the chances that we see that kind of temperature rise. And you might ask yourself, what does that have to do with a composting company? So what I'm here to talk about is how the work that we do is deeply and inextricably linked to the work of addressing climate change on a very localized level through actions that we think are attainable and approachable to everyday people. And we kind of got some validation about that when we read this report called Project Drawdown, the subtitle of which is the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. So I think that a lot of the times folks think about how we can mitigate or slow climate change. And so what we found really, really refreshing about this report was realizing that there are technologies available today that can not only slow, but reverse climate change. So it isn't, the writing is not yet on the wall, because we can change our behaviors and our actions and rally and build community around solutions that are proven to work, that are relatively cost effective today, and certainly cost effective in the long term. And so how we go about implementing these solutions is really just a matter of willpower and collective action. And so what we attempt to do is to make doing many little things that add up to significant change. And so much to the surprise of the researchers leading this effort, they looked at on a sector by sector basis what industry or sector could contribute most meaningfully to the slowing or reversing of climate change. And I think that, growing up, I sort of got, drank the Kool-Aid when I went and saw Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth. And so I was led to believe, like many others were, that in order to be an environmentalist, you need solar panels on your roof, you need a wind turbine in your backyard, and you need to drive a Tesla or a Prius, right? But for most people in our community and across the country and globe, those are very cost prohibitive ways to get into seeing yourself as playing a beneficial role in mitigating one's impact on the climate. And so what this report found is that it's actually our food and agricultural system that is the single greatest lever towards minimizing or reducing our collective impact on climate. And at first glance, you might scratch your head and ask why that might be the case, but you need to realize that how much land, resources, labor, fertilizers, chemicals, etc., and the flywheel impacts that our agricultural system has, and how wildly inefficient it is today. So I think that it speaks to just how broken our food system is, but also that it is a very attainable lever that we can begin acting on to have really significant change in a really positive way. And so when you break down the agricultural system more broadly, these were the solutions that emerged as the single greatest levers within that sector of food, as what we can do to minimize our own impact on climate change. And so reducing food waste is the single greatest thing we can do within agriculture to minimize our footprint. And behind that is eating a plant-rich diet. So a lot of attention, I think, has been given, rightfully so, to the impacts that meat consumption has on the planet. And so you're seeing, these Impossible Burgers and Beyond Meat things kind of popping up that are giving consumers greater access to sort of plant-based things that are less intensive on the environment. But if you think about food waste, right? When you discard food in a way that doesn't allow it to return nutrients to the soil, you are throwing away all of the water that went into growing that food, all of the pesticides and herbicides that went into growing that food. You're throwing away the land, essentially, when you throw away that food. And so what this report is proposing is that if we work on reducing food waste, the food system itself can become much more resilient and much more of a solution and driver in reducing our collective impact on climate change. And so you might ask yourself, well, food waste, how big of a problem can it be? Well, unfortunately, it's a pretty tremendous undertaking to really wrap your head around. And the U.S., more so than almost any other country in the world, is really culpable for some egregious waste in the system. And so in the United States, roughly 40% of all the food that's grown here will be sent to landfill. And so our landfill's single largest component, as in its composition, most landfills' composition, the single largest component of that is food or other compostable materials. And that really doesn't sit well with me, knowing how food insecure many people in our community are, where they don't know where their next meal is coming from, or alternately, right, the prevalence of diet-related disease. So what this tells me is that we have a food system that is broken on many, many fronts, and by correcting it, we have a really unique opportunity to improve public health, to reconnect ourselves to regional farmers, to reconnect ourselves to seasonal eating. And in doing so, we will be able to reduce food waste so long as we've got interventions in place that ensure that food has a viable alternative to going to landfills. And so those are some big numbers, but the joke that I've got is that daily you could fill Cleveland Browns Stadium with the amount of food waste that we generate every single day in the United States. And more often than not, it's a slightly better use of the stadium, given how well the Browns have been playing historically. So who's wasting all of this food, you might ask? And the sort of sad reality is it's you and I, it's us. Households contribute most significantly to the food waste that occurs in the United States, only behind businesses and then farms. And so what we at Rust Belt Riders do is works with businesses, organizations, and individuals all over Northeast Ohio to provide them with an alternative to food waste. And so food waste occurs in really innocuous ways. The example that I often give is, when I'm going grocery store shopping and I see a bag of arugula, for example, that's buy one, get one half off, or buy one, get one free, I'm likely to get through that first bag, but the second bag will just wilt in the back of my refrigerator. The other really easy one is, you ask your server, if you could pack up the rest of your uneaten meal, and you take it home fully intending to eat it, only to let it rot in the back of your refrigerator. Now businesses, I think, is a lot more easy to wrap your head around how and why food waste occurs, right? So these are oftentimes the people that are preparing meals for guests or visitors. And so these are commercial scale kitchens, right? That are throwing stuff away just like you and I are at our homes, but are doing it on a slightly larger scale. And so there's lots of ways that we can really start to drive these numbers down. And I think it first starts with recognizing that there's a lot of interventions that can be had well before a service like ours comes into being, namely shopping smarter and more regularly, thinking about using more of the fruits and vegetables that you're consuming in creative ways, like carrot top pesto, or making vegetable stock with your trimmings. But when that isn't possible, that's where we come in. And so we're really interested in trying to provide people with an easy way to keep food out of landfills. And so there's this quote that we often talk about in our company, which is by R. Buckminster Fuller, kind of a hero of mine, that said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the old one obsolete." And so we're in the business of making landfills obsolete, because when you think about the amount of resources that we actually are sending to landfills and are treating like waste, there's a tremendous opportunity there to rethink how we think about economic growth, how we think about job creation, how we think about public health and food access in a way that really can elevate and change the trajectory that many of our communities are on, in a way to really show leadership around climate resilience and an improved and more equitable food system. And so what we do is we work with businesses and organizations, providing them with a range of services, primarily our collection services, where we provide our clients a container much in the same way that a recycling company would. But the material that goes into our bins are just as every bit of food that is discarded at a place of business. And then we exchange these full containers with clean, empty ones to ensure that people who may be skittish around introducing a new practice like recycling are able to do so with a very clean transition. We also do zero waste events. So if you're hosting a fundraiser or birthday party, we can help you select items that are fully compostable to ensure that your event has a positive impact on the community. Able to become a subscriber on our website, and then select a drop-off location that is community-based. We're currently up to 8 different locations in and around our service area, where folks can essentially collect their food scraps at home, and then on a schedule that works for them, drop off their food scraps into a secure, clean bin for us to do the composting for them. So oftentimes people don't necessarily have a yard or the wherewithal or knowledge of how composting works to do so effectively. And so we encourage people to sort of offload that to us. And with that, you get some perks like discounts on our soils and access to workshops and happy hours and other things like that. And so that program was launched about 2 years ago, and we currently have around 800 members that are actively involved in that plan. And then the next one is our pickup program, where we sort of fashion ourselves like the milkman of yesteryear. We provide our clients with bins that they keep in their home. And then once a week, they put that bin full of food scraps out on their front porch. And then we come by and exchange their full one for a clean, empty one. And so similarly, these folks get access to all the perks that our drop-off members do, but we do a little bit more of the heavy lifting for folks. And so that has a little bit more narrow a service area because, just like a paper route or something, you really need to have density of usership and of interest to ensure that we're not going to lose our shirt running around picking up all these food scraps. And so what we do with all that stuff, I think, is really where it gets interesting for me. So on a monthly basis, we're collecting around 200,000 pounds of food waste. And all of that gets brought to our facility that we just got access or just expanded into in Independence, Ohio. So there's this other fun quote that says, there's a magic machine that sucks carbon out of the air, costs very little, and builds itself. And so running a small business, we often have to like pitch to investors and people to, hopefully get some money to keep fuel in the tank to keep these things going. And, this to me sounds like a pitch out of Shark Tank, but the answer to this question is actually soil, right? So soil is the thing that makes itself. It's a tool for carbon sequestration. It's a tool that retains moisture, increases soil fertility, and that's what we make with all of the food scraps that we collect. And so a brief primer on how we make our compost is that we've got ratios of 3 parts carbon, so think wood chips and leaf debris that we get from cities, municipalities, and tree trimming companies, to 1 part nitrogen, which is our food waste. And then once you have that, you're sort of off to the races. We then make sure that we've got moisture levels of about 50%, which is a strange figure, but essentially think of the texture of a wrung out sponge. So if it's too dry, you might kill off some microbes, and if it's too wet, you might drown some microbes. And it's those microbes and their reproduction that causes heat to emit and us to kill off weeds, seeds, and pathogens that might exist in some of the food waste that we're collecting. And then the last component is air. Again, we're basically cultivating billions and billions of microbes. And so we are constantly turning our piles with machinery to make sure that each part of the pile is properly decomposing, which also helps to minimize odors, but also speed up the decomposition process itself. So, a home composter that's very actively managing their pile may be able to have a banana peel finish composting in 3 or 4 months' time. At our facility, we're able to process food waste from banana peel to usable soil within about 45 days. And so with that, we have a line of products called Tilth Soil. And so we've got sort of 2 flagship products. One is called Sprout, which is sort of our seed starting mix. So if you're a home gardener that grows from seeds, this would be a great way to get your seeds starting and off to the races for a healthy start. And then the other product we have is called Grow, which is sort of a raised bed fill mix. And so we sort of liken what we're doing with soil to, at the risk of sounding arrogant, like what Pat and Dan Conway were doing when they started Great Lakes Brewing. I think that most people don't know good soil until they have it, much in the same way that, you don't know that most of the beer you've been drinking isn't all that great until you have a really good one. And so we've got a really awesome product that has been reviewed by like the University of Kentucky, among other institutions of higher learning. And we're just been blown away with how effective the products we're making are. And so we think it's the time, care, and attention that we put into making it that puts out a great product. And so now that we've got this new facility, we're going to be able to make these products more available to a wider range of growers all over the state. And so, I think people are somewhat familiar with the farm to table movement. Well, what we're trying to do is have the farm to table movement meet a table to farm movement and have that go round and round. Because if we can use the resources that we're already producing in a way that is functionally infinite and constantly recycling those items, we'll be able to have far less environmental damage take place, but also make healthy, delicious food way more accessible, all while combating climate change. And so that's my presentation. There's some contact information here below, but I'm also happy to give that out to anybody who might want it. So with that, I will stop talking and hopefully entertain some questions. So I'm back.
Well, let's see what just happened for me here.
Am I visible now?
Yep, nope.
Okay.
Actually, I was invisible all of a sudden. I lost the whole link, but I'm back.
Cool.
Thank you, Dan. I mean, that is really interesting. Now, you guys are in Independence, huh?
Yeah, so we just partnered with Kurtz Brothers. So they've got a facility right at the Cloverleaf interchange. And so we just took over 2 acres of their facility there to run and maintain their licensed composting facility. And that's just about a month old. So we're still getting our feet wet, literally and figuratively, out there. And yeah, but it's substantially larger than our previous processing operations, which is exciting.
Now, what is one of the questions I have is, what is your largest, I'm sure you guys sell the compost and the soil.
Yeah.
What is your largest load? Do people come in and get it by dump truck, or do they bring a lot of people come in with just garbage cans and fill it up?
Yeah. So we sell it on our website. We've got we sort of sell in two primary increments. The first is a 1.5 cubic foot bag. So we're working on establishing retail partnerships with like regional garden centers. And so if you think about a normal bag of mulch or soil that you'd get from Home Depot or Lowe's, those are usually like 1.5 cubic foot bags. But then we also sell by the cubic yard, which is, kind of a more traditional increment for like landscape supply stores and things like that. But we can deliver nationwide. So we partner with folks that can hook us up with freight. But for Northeast Ohio, we tend to do those deliveries ourselves.
All right, one more question, then I'll let everyone, because I'm getting ready to plant a lot of grass, and I'm thinking, boy, this would probably be a lot better than throwing hay all over the yard. Get a pickup truck load of this stuff, and then just sprinkle it on top of the grass seed. Have you heard anybody utilizing it for that?
So our, carrying on the Great Lakes brewing analogy, our product is a little bit more expensive. So it's often used more for very specific purposes of growing food. It'll grow your grass just fine, right? But I think that most people buying our products are either professional growers or really enthusiastic home gardeners. It's really designed for that, to ensure that you got great root growth and disease resistant for fruits and vegetables. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have some questions?
I've got a couple, Steve.
Sure.
Dan, in your slides, the first one you talked about the highest percentage of pollution or changing the environment is actually the gases and stuff. And I saw recently, I want to say it was McDonald's, maybe Burger King, both of them are talking about changing their beef cows' diet to reduce methane. Do you know anything about that? Could you comment?
Yeah, absolutely. So methane is the greenhouse gas that is perhaps most harmful in the short term when we think about greenhouse gas emissions. So methane's potency to climate change is roughly 25 to 30 times more harmful than CO2, which is the emissions that'll come out of your tailpipe. And so a big reason that the food and agricultural space is a big lever is because that's where a lot of the methane emissions occur. So both from cows belching, but also when food goes to landfill, it emits massive quantities of methane. And so why I know this, I can't tell you, but one change in the diet that a lot of cattle ranchers are experimenting with is by adding seaweed actually to the diets of beef. And that's been shown to reduce methane emissions from beef production by as much as like 30 or 40%. Now, most of the emissions for beef and cattle actually come from all of the upstream requirements, right? Think of the amount of land you need to properly raise cattle, the feed, so the emissions, the total emission load for raising cattle needs to include their water consumption, their grain production, and all of the inputs that go towards creating a pound of protein, for example. So as McDonald's and others are working on reducing the methane emissions, it's really from the cattle itself, but there's very little that can be done to work on those upstream things because of how resource intensive that kind of protein production is.
Thank you. I didn't, again, know if this was just a marketing gimmick or, we see so much being done with engines and the catalytic converters and stuff, but we got to focus on our cows and our food supply.
We sure do.
Okay, my second question, a couple of weeks ago, we had a presentation by Karen Miller with CuyahogaRecycles.org. I don't know if you are
Yep.
familiar with them, if you work with them, because they were saying some of their difficulties or problems is actually when people, bag their plastic bags or their cardboard, it's contaminated with food waste and they can't do the proper recycling. Is that something that maybe you could piggyback on to help get that cross-contamination eliminated?
Yeah, so certainly recycling nationwide finds itself in a really precarious situation. So not sure how much Karen shared about this, but basically China about a year ago stopped accepting most of the recyclables generated in the United States, in large part because of how contaminated they were. It's my opinion and belief that I think where we ought to be focusing our efforts and energies is really in bypassing recycling entirely and moving more towards a reuse type of system. So there's some really interesting companies, one of which is called Loop. So they're partnering with companies like Tide and Haagen-Dazs and other sort of like large brands that you're familiar with. But the way that their service works is they give you a container that is washable and reusable. And once your container's empty, you send it back to them and you get another one. And so it's the idea of single-use plastics are a very linear way of thinking. And so a big thing we try and do is encourage people to seek out compostable products, right? Because that compost can be reused and reused over and over again, where single-use plastics are often either too contaminated or there isn't the infrastructure regionally to properly process them. So my words of encouragement for people that are frustrated by recycling is, I hear you, I'm also frustrated, but think about the ways that you can bring a reusable water bottle rather than drinking out of a plastic one, 20 times over the course of a month. There are little ways that you can start eliminating single-use plastics from your daily routine. And if that isn't possible, there's often compostable alternatives to many single-use plastics.
Thanks, Dan. It's good to get confirmation of a couple of things that I hear, because with so much misinformation and outright lies on the media that we're getting, it's like, I don't know what to believe, but it sounds good. And thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions for Dan?
Yep, I have a question. Dan, so I think that you only deal with Cuyahoga County. That's the deal, right?
Yeah, so we're a very geographically bound organization, and so it's hard to make a lot of the economics work when you're driving too far out of your immediate vicinity, and so density is really a
Can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I think he might have. There he goes.
Am
Yeah,
I
you cut
back?
off a little bit there,
Yeah,
Dan.
you're back.
Okay, sorry. So there's an Akron-based company that just got started up recently called Rubber City Reuse. They might be a little closer to you, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with the fellow that started that.
And then, so if somebody does not use a service like yours or maybe this new company, what would you suggest? Like, I personally do worm composting at home.
Yep.
And can you talk about some options that people do?
Yeah, so we are terrible business people. So we're really eager to have ourselves put out of business. We think that food waste is a very dumb problem. And so the degree to which we can encourage people to compost at their home, that is the single best place to compost. And so we host workshops. We have literature that I'd be happy to share with you about how to go about establishing a compost pile at your home, what to look for and how to monitor it. But particularly in the Cleveland area, we find that a lot of people just lack the space, the time, and things like that to do it properly. And so it can be more of a time commitment than you might think, but it's certainly, like at my own home, I use worms as well. So I've got vermicomposting going on, and that's a very sort of low touch, pretty passive way to manage food waste from a relatively small household. So for
It's a
larger
small
family,
footprint, too.
right, a small footprint as well. But if you've got a larger family with kids running around, it can be that the amount of food waste you got can add up quickly. So you might want a bigger system.
One more question. I know that there's several CSAs in the area, and one in particular, Imperfect Produce, and I
Yeah.
had used them for a while. And some of the food that they sent me was, I don't know, kind of near its end of age. So I'm sure that they have a lot of food waste. Do you partner with any of those, like CSAs, that they're bad?
Yeah. So we work with 3. So there's Perfectly Imperfect that we work with. So when they if there's stuff that doesn't pass their muster even before it goes into packaging, we're composting that for them. We also work with Fresh Fork and then City Fresh as well. And so yeah, it's really interesting to see how this, little ecosystem is emerging, all in the hopes of, making, our food system a little bit more resilient.
And one last question. So even though we're in Summit County here, if we had like an event, would you work with us on an event?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh.
So our events can travel much more easily than our service can. So we've helped with events as small as like a 10-team leadership event to many thousands of people at like Burning River Fest in Cleveland or the Cleveland International Film Festival. So we typically encourage people to reach out at least a month in advance if you've got an event in mind, so that we can work through a lot of the logistics and planning that go into that, because it's often a very new thing for people.
You know what, I actually have one more thing. Could you, because I know that on your website, I saw the huge list of, major corporations and organizations. Can you just name so everyone can know like who you deal with?
Sure, yeah. So we work with folks like the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. We work with the Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals, Case Western Reserve University, Dominion Energy, then also smaller firms as well, like Phoenix Coffee, lots of independent restaurants, even offices, I think, are the things that we're finding most surprising, so architecture firms, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting to sort of see the underbelly of a lot of these operations that you might not otherwise get to. So yeah.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You don't have any more questions, Debbie?
No, I think that's it. If I have more, I'll email you.
That sounds good. And feel free to pass along my contact information to anybody who wasn't able to join. I'm more than happy to chat with anybody.
Yeah, please do that, Debbie. So, because I'm sure everyone's got a lot of questions for
Yeah, and
Dan.
we record the meeting, so all the members who couldn't come can watch, and then I'll give you our contact information too.
Great.
It's kind of interesting, Dan, just the point of view on recycling. It wasn't too long ago that we did recycle our pop bottles. We had our milk delivered and the bottle was returned, and people had compost. It was just over the past 20 years that we changed all this plastic and everything, and now we're trying to go back. So it's quite interesting. It really is.
Yeah, yeah.
You're doing a good thing. Thank you, and I hope it keeps spreading.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks so much for having me. This has been great.
Thank you. We're going to just go over a couple announcements of our meeting. You're more than welcome to stay, but if you wanted to jump on out because you have things to do, you're more than welcome to. But thanks again for joining us.
Take off. It was great.
Join
Thanks so
everyone,
much.
and thanks, Daniel.
All right, yeah, take care.
Okay, just a couple announcements. September 8th, which is next week, we will not have a meeting. That's right after the Labor Day holiday, so enjoy your weekend. September 18th, which will be our next regular meeting, Alex Pavlov, Ohio Secretary of State's office. He's going to talk about ensure voting happens safely and securely. So with the voting season coming up, it should be pretty interesting what he has to say. September Actually, September 18th is when the shoe boxes will be due. That's a Friday. So any of you that have your shoe boxes, Jacob, that you haven't picked yours up yet from my house,
When do you say it was due?
you still got time. Don't worry. September 18th.
September 18th. Okay.
Yeah, come and visit me, Jacob. We'll have a beer. Anyways, the shoebox September 18th is when it's due. So we'll get those over to Terry S. at Builders Emporium on Highland Road there. If you have any questions, please give me a call or email me or Debbie. We pretty much know what's going on. November, the virtual craft beer festival. I know Nick Molnar has been involved with that. They're trying to figure out a way to make that happen. Nothing's set in stone yet, but if something does happen, it's going to be in November. So they're trying to figure something out. It's kind of an interesting aspect. I had Debbie send out a link that the Kent JC's put out a virtual beer fest and craft beer festival, and kind of interesting how they did it. So we'll keep you posted on that, whether Rotary and Macedonia can make something like that happen. They're looking into it. I don't know if Nick had anything to say about that or no.
I'm still working on it, Steve.
Yep. So again, it's not a sure thing, but it'd be nice to keep it out there so we can try and make it happen the following year. February 6th, reverse raffle. So keep that on your calendar. If we can't do it in person, we'll figure out something virtually for that too. Please keep the Emergency Assistance Center in your thoughts, and stop by and donate them some food and fruit. They could certainly use it. We will be having some, or we do have some storefronts that we're going to put up. As soon as I hear from Dave Fike, I'll be putting out a mass email to see who can help us install some of these storefronts over there at Rushwood for the Safety Town. Those are my announcements. Does anybody else have anything to add? Very well. Thanks for joining us today. It was a great meeting, and meeting is adjourned. Thanks, and have a great Labor Day weekend, everybody.
You too.